Today, we're going to do a brief lecture on the history of the American Revolution. The goals of this lecture is to understand the causes and effects of the Revolution War and also understand how our country became an independent nation. So, as many of you may know, some of the causes of the Revolutionary War was acts passed by Parliament that taxed the life out of all the colonists. Some of these taxes include stamps with the Stamp Act of 1765, various goods with the Townshend Act, and tea with the Tea Act, which led to the Boston Tea Party, where colonists decided, hey, we're not going to have any of your tea. So they jumped on a British ship dressed as Native Americans and tossed the tea in the water. There was also some other causes of the war include the Quartering Act, where colonists were forced to shelter soldiers, and the Boston Massacre, where during a riot, British soldiers opened fire on a crowd in Boston, killing 5. And not exactly a massacre. However, the official start of the war was when militias in Lexington and Concord were confronted with British soldiers, resulting in the shot heard around the world, the beginning of the revolution. Probably the greatest thing to come out of the revolution was the Declaration of Independence. Originally, America did not fight for its independence; it just fight to stop the oppression of the colonies. However, in a convention in Philadelphia, the Declaration of Independence was developed, authored by Thomas Jefferson, and it announced the colony's independence from Britain, and also contained a list of grievances against King George III, which it was originally really supposed to be addressed to Parliament. However, it would be easier for colonists to understand if they just blamed the king instead of Parliament, because Parliament isn't really a figurehead like the king. Some of the key battles and events that occurred during the Revolutionary War, of course, included the Battle of Lexington and Concord, the Battle of Bunker Hill, the Siege of Boston, Battle of Saratoga, Valley Forge, where George Washington's army was forced to shelter through a brutal winter near Philadelphia, if my geography is not mistaken, and also the Battle of Yorktown, which was the last. This, of course, happened after the Revolution. However, this was the battle, or after the signing of Declaration, but this was the last major battle in the war. The British soldiers were holed up in Yorktown, Virginia, and eventually surrendered after being blocked from escaping Chesapeake Bay by the French and the Americans on the land side of the conflict. The Treaty of Paris officially ended the Revolutionary War and recognized the United States as its own nation. Britain was forced to recognize the United States' sovereignty. So here's some questions for reflection. How did the Declaration change the goal of the war? How did the French affect the end of the war? And bonus, what would the American Revolution later inspire? And that is all.